What's good, fam? It's Teacher Ready back with another reaction. Much like a reluctant booty call, Sam O'nella shows up once a year, gives us a few minutes of pleasure, and then leaves us wanting more. Yesterday, Sam O'nella put out a new video, Zhang Zongchang, the Dogmeat General. One of my favorite subjects was the history of China, especially the warring states after the final dynasty, the Qing dynasty, falls. China falls into a warring state period for a little over a decade, and the Dogmeat General is one of the most famous ones. So let's get into it.
Hey kids, today I've got another character study for you all, a man known as Zhang Zongchang. In 1881, he was born into poverty in the Shandong region of China. His father was a head shaver, not a barber mind you. If a head shaver's a barber, then a ditch digger's an architect. He also moonlit as an alcoholic. His mom, meanwhile, was a literal practicing witch and exorcist, already a recipe for success. Zhang joined a group of roving bandits at age 20, as one does, right around the Xinhai Revolution, where the Qing dynasty was overthrown and the Republic of China was established. But in 1916, the kidneys of the nation's widely disliked monarchist leader done shat the bed, causing a power vacuum that ultimately led to what is known as the Warlord Era of the Republic. During this time, different regions of China were constantly shifting hands between a collection of separate military groups, all of whom were ruthless both to each other and to the people they ruled over, and through charisma.
Yeah, so during this period, which was around 1912, I believe, the Qing dynasty falls after the death of the final Qing ruler. And this brings on, like I said, about a decade of warring period. I mean, it lasted a little longer after that, but around 1928, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Chiang Kaishek basically takes over and establishes a new China. Right? So this ends thousands of years of dynastic rule in China. So this was a huge deal. And then, of course, in the 40s, there's a civil war. After the revolution, much like in Russia, the communists win. And then eventually we get people like Mao Zedong, etc., etc.
Favors to the right people, and a keen sense of military pragmatism, our humble highwayman soon came to be one of these warlords. Now, Zhang was quite skilled as a leader of war. After the Russian Civil War, he recruited thousands of fleeing white Russians, not beverages, but Bolshevik butchers, which bolstered his battalions and brought big
Yeah, Bolshevik butchers. So there were the Bolsheviks, which were the communists led by Lenin, and then there were the Mensheviks. So the white Russians were basically anyone who was not a red Russian or a communist Russian.
Bonuses to his bloodshed. He also made efficient use of armored trains, which proved to be highly cost-effective at transporting large amounts of troops and supplies. But that's not what you people care about. You want some clownage. Well, rest assured, Zhang was quite the character. Now, we all know the age-old debate between positive and negative reinforcement. On the one hand, if you treat people well, you'll probably get the same treatment back later down the line. But on the other hand, nobody's ever taught a tiger to jump through flaming hoops with just pets and temptations. And if you think that's messed up, that's because, well, yeah, it is. Circuses are fucking evil. But like all great leaders, Zhang knew how to appropriately apply both the carrot and the stick. As an example of the former, he defeated the forces of enemy General Wu Peifu largely by convincing members of his army to defect, with the promise that they could keep their original rank after switching sides, which he fulfilled. But then he was like, yeah, I don't know if my loyal men would be too happy about being outranked by strangers. Well, only one solution here. All my guys are ranking up. Problem was, so many officers were promoted that Zhang literally ran out of gold and silver to make new insignias. He was like, I gotta think about this. Went out for a smoke, looked down, hey, wait a minute, and had the rest of the emblems made out of the colorful.
That's a funny, because he was known as the Dogmeat General. Now, folks, here's a lesson. Never take the word of your teachers, professors, whatever it may be. Always do your own research. Because I remember when I took my classes on China, I had a professor who at least claimed that he lived in China for over a decade. He learned all the customs, histories, blah, blah, blah. And when we got to the Dogmeat General, he spent about 5 minutes on him. And he said he was called a Dogmeat General because he fed his troops dog food, which is 100% not true. I know Sam O'nella hasn't mentioned it. But he was called the Dogmeat General because he liked to gamble. And he liked specifically to play a game called Pai Gow. And Pai Gow in the nomenclature of the locals was known as, I believe, like eating dog food or eating dog meat or something of that nature. So he did not eat dog food. He didn't eat dogs, nothing like that. But another one of his nicknames was the Three I Don't Knows. Now, not to make him out to be a clown or anything, because he was a successful warlord in the period, but it was just completely insane. He also wrote poetry. Some of his poetry is absolutely just bonkers. I hope Sam O'nella covers it. But the Three I Don't Knows was he didn't know how much money he had, which is obviously gold, silver was the predominant currency. So it goes to show he had no clue how much gold he had. He had no clue how many people he had under his rule. Estimates, not people, but soldiers under his rule. Estimates are anywhere from 30 to about 50,000. So it goes to show you what kind of a leader he was, because it's pretty tough to lead when you don't know things.
Foil found in cigarette packages. It's said that during the promotion ceremony, people would look down and notice their little star already had a rip in it before the event was even over. But hey, there's still a colonel or a poobah or whatever now, they can't complain. On another occasion, he proudly announced that he would either win an upcoming battle or return home in his coffin. And though Zhang was many things, he was not a liar. So after he ended up retreating, his men paraded him through the streets in a casket while he waved and sheafed on a cigar. So you're probably wondering,
yes, he was a big fan of cigars, but that story is 100% true. I back Sam O'nella on that one. That actually happened.
Why they called him the Dogmeat General. At this point, my head was swimming with lurid fantasies about him eating dog flesh, or wearing dog flesh, or eating dog flesh. Turns out, nah, he was just real into pai gow, of which the act of playing was colloquially referred to as eating dog meat. And also
eating dog
he was also
meat.
sometimes jokingly referred to as the Three Don't Knows, since he didn't know how much money he had, how many concubines he had, or how many men were in his army. Well, funny, there was some truth to the nickname, which did sometimes cause issues. Some were minor. For one, he had a lot of trouble remembering the names of the 30 to 50 women of all nationalities in his harem, but he got around this by just assigning them numbers. Number 4 is real flexible, 27 makes a killer quiche. Watch out for...
This is again 100% true. It may sound insane, but yeah, he assigned all of his concubines numbers. And he did have all different types of nationalities. It wasn't just Chinese. He had Russians. He even had some Americans in his harem. But he assigned them all numbers. Yeah, like number 27, she makes a killer pie. Number 14, ooh.
14, she's a biter, and so forth. Other times, things got a little more dire. Later in his career, Zhang became the military governor of the province of Shandong, and while the warlord life suited him, domestic affairs were another story. Rampant human rights violations aside, the whole thing was just way poorly managed. For example, while Zhang did collect taxes on everything from theater performances to tobacco examination licenses, relatively little of his extortions went towards his war efforts or anything practical, with most of it being funneled into vanity projects and his own personal riches. So how did he fund his army? Well, for those playing at home, it's time to take a shot, because Zhang printed tens of millions of dollars worth of paper money in the form of military stamps with no reserve to back them up. Obviously, massive inflation ensued, but Zhang just said no, insisted the stamps had a 1-to-1 conversion with real money, and continued paying his men at the same rate. Fortunately for them, the invisible hand of the market is no match for the very visible fist of the soldier, because they just kick old merchant ladies' asses till they accepted the currency at face value. But unfortunately, kicking old ladies' asses can't solve everything. In the summer of 1927, Shandong was hit with a famine caused primarily by drought. At the time, many people prayed to Zhongxian, a folk deity, in an attempt to bring rain to these crusty lands. But Zhang Zongchang, he don't get on his knees for nobody. He walked right up to the statue in Xian's temple, starts bitch slapping it, tells it to go fornicate with its sister, and then has his artillery crew fire shells straight into the sky for hours on end to show that god who he's dealing with. Sources differ on when the next rain was, but it did eventually.
Okay, I honestly never heard that one. I'm gonna look into that, and I suggest you do as well. But I would not be surprised.
Rain, so in the end, Zongchang got the last laugh. Speaking of which, our boy was also a renowned poet. Here's a piece he wrote about that very event.
Yes.
The sky god is also named Zhang. Why does he make life hard for me? If it doesn't rain in 3 days, I'll demolish your temple. Then I'll have cannons bombard your mom. Truly prophetic. He's got a few other good ones too. Let me just dim the lights real quick. Yeah. This one's called Visiting Mount Tai. From afar, Mount Tai looks blackish. Narrow on top and wide at the bottom. If you flipped it upside down, it would be narrow at the bottom and wide on top. I like that one a lot, because it's like he heard about metaphors without realizing they're supposed to have a second meaning. This one's titled Poem About Bastards.
Yes, this is the best one.
You tell me to do this, he tells me to do that. You are all bastards, go fuck your mother.
Chef's kiss. I mean, come on. What else do you need in poetry? Forget about T.S. Eliot and all these people. Forget about William Butler Yeats. This is poetry right here.
Poignant. But unlike most poets besides E. E. Cummings and Emily Dickinson, Zhang was quite well endowed. He was often referred to as General 86, as when Zhang Jr. stood up straight, he could reportedly reach the length of 86 Mexican silver dollars stacked atop one another. Given a thickness of 2.4 millimeters, this would put him at around 20.6 centimeters or 8.1 inches. That's especially impressive given that he was likely malnourished during puberty due to both poverty and the 1896 famine. You racists. I thought of a few other jokes about this, but I couldn't fit them in the narrative, so I'll just rattle them off. Should have been called the Horsemeat General. When he got out of the pool, he was General 12. This one just says Dong Hung Dong. You get the point. But all great things must eventually come to an end. After suffering a series of defeats at the hands of his enemies and a subsequent failed rebellion against a quickly reunifying China, Zhang was forced to run away in 1928, bringing his mom with him to Beppu, Japan. His time here was relatively uneventful.
Yes, his witchy mom. But yeah, 1928, that's when Chiang Kaishek takes over.
Except for when he shot a former prince in the back for trying it on with one of his concubines. In court, he said the gun just happened to go off while he was pointing it at the center of the guy's mask. For some reason, they're like, nothing suspicious here. Gave him the choice between 15 days in prison or a $150 fine. He chose the latter. Zhang's story finally came to an end in 1932 when he went back to Shandong not as a conqueror but as a visitor. Unfortunately, it seems it takes people more than 4 years to get over murder because he was unceremoniously assassinated by the nephew of an officer that he had executed.
He was actually not stabbed, he was shot. Just small correction there.
All in all, Zhang left behind quite a strange legacy. Given the litany of horrible crimes that I've seemed to kind of gloss over, he's generally regarded as the stinkiest stain of an already messy portion of the tapestry that is Chinese history. The only remaining question is if one can truly separate the art from the artist. During his rule, Time magazine described him as China's basest warlord. I'll let you decide whether or not they forgot the DE. That's all for today. Till next time, I'm Sam O'nella, and I'm hiding in your fridge.
Sam O'nella,
This video
bringing
is
the heat. Love it, love it, love it. So that was a great video by Sam. I really enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section what you thought. Let me know any other Sam O'nella. I've done a bunch of Sam O'nella reactions. Check out the playlist. But again, Sam O'nella never disappoints. I'm Teacher Eddie. I'll catch you in the next one. Fam! And shouting out the Patreons as always, the Chancellors, Alex S. and John Alonzo, and the Principals, Chad A. and Clement. Thank you for watching, and tune in next time.